given how much time has gone by since we started this claim, I think an explanation of the history is warranted uh, to bolster our case. I'll put it that way, because somebody might look and see the original date of the claim and say, what's going on? Why is it dragged on so long? So, without further ado, Father passed away on August 6th, 2015, and DFAS was notified immediately that Father had passed away and that Nancy, the beneficiary of the SBP, was making a claim. And it took 6 weeks, over 6 weeks, for DFAS to even acknowledge that they got it. The initial claims process was cumbersome and time consuming. Obviously, I'm going off notes here, but I'm going to go through pages to show you what we had to do. Nancy had to verify that she was still disabled and her current disability is the same disability that was, or substantially the same disability used as the basis to have her covered in the first place, which was a bit of a process and required a medical exam in Germany, retrieval of medical records for Nancy from 1982 and from 1954, which is the year she was born. So the process of getting the necessary records was cumbersome, and DFAS asked for a number of clarifications and additional materials. And it wasn't until late 2016 that we'd even furnished the necessary records to DFAS. It was not easy getting records from a hospital in Detroit, Michigan from 1956. So more months went by before finally getting a denial letter based upon marriage on April 6, 2017. That was a long, long time to wait for what we thought was the payment of benefits. And where was that denial letter? It's somewhere here, but I've referenced it in other materials. Okay, given the, let's see, is it this one? No, that's the next step in the process. We'll go back here. Given the history of what I'm talking about here and the grammatical mistakes that we found in that letter, we thought it must be a mistake. So we said, oh, it's got to be a mistake. But DFAS insisted the marriage disqualified disabled SBP beneficiaries and directed us to the rule in the webpage. And then we're going to the webpage and reading it, and it's not the first time we've gone to the webpage. We already knew about it, and careful rereading at this point indicated no, it doesn't disqualify adult disabled people at all. And we were going back and forth with them saying the rules of the program disqualify on marriage, and us saying no, the webpage doesn't say that. So we tried to find a lawyer. It's a very, very little known program. Someone suggested that we go to our congressperson, who was Mike Quigley. We met with a guy named Toma, and here are some emails from him. He was very sympathetic. He read that webpage the exact same way we did, and after a little brainstorming with him, we requested that DFAS give us the precise legal justification for denying the claim. He had just the right words. And then, and this is where it starts to get interesting. So this is, when is it, into 2018, I think this was. Let's see here, into 2018, we're dealing with him into 2019 even a bit. So it's going to become clear why we've persevered this long. So we asked them for the precise legal justification for denying the claim, and didn't even talk about the website. So, and again, this is where it gets interesting. Toma indicated a response from DFAS should come very quickly, within 2 or 3 days. They get back very quickly. So after maybe 10 days went by, I called Toma, and he said, wow, we haven't heard anything from them. It's unusually long. Another 2 weeks went by, nothing. And then Toma calls me and says, oh, we got some interesting news. It's in their legal department. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, they're obviously going to cave in, and they're realizing that their website isn't the same as as the ruling they gave us, and they're just making sure they don't get sued for a lot of money. A week goes by. Toma calls again. He says it's gone to their senior legal department now. And I'm like, don't worry, we're not going to sue. And then another week goes by, and we get a reiteration of the denial that you already know about, which references this accounting manual. So at that point, I said, well, okay, all right, the denial letter referencing this accounting manual shows that this contradicts or is different than the website. So therefore, I'm back to looking at a lawyer. And very few people know anything about the SBP. We finally found a lawyer who would look at this. He didn't want to agree to take it. He looked at it and he said, and he came back and he said, well, I have some bad news. There's this legal thing, a legal principle, cut to the chase here. It's very difficult to sue a government for fraud, and especially the Defense Department, so he didn't want to take the case. We had to pay him a little bit of money even to get that information. Now, once I saw this, at that point, I put the meetings of the DFAS legal team and then senior legal team in a little bit different context. Because rather than them making sure they didn't get sued, they were probably discussing whether Nancy and me had grounds with which to overturn their denial, and given this, they figured they could just strong arm us and make us go away. And that is not a good feeling. I'm going to do another video about our family history and sort of contrast that strong arming. We can deny this with what they've gotten from our family. So anyway, that's what it looked to me. And while Tomo is a very discreet person, he more or less, he didn't say, yes, Nelson, I'm sure that's what was going on. But, we suspect that those meetings of the legal department were, can we legally deny this and strong arm them and make them go away? And probably the answer was yes. And that's not a good feeling after the parent has paid 30 years into the program. So where are we in my notes here? At that point, so another thing is that throughout this process, one of the reasons why it's dragged on so long is evasion. The DFAS at every step has tried to evade us. Ask for more info. First, they didn't acknowledge that. It was weeks went by before they even acknowledged that a claim came in, and then it was either evasion or asking for more records. First asking for more and more records from us, and then evading. And that is not a good feeling. But the thing is, the further we went on in this process, the more all of us have been convinced that we're right. We're right in the sense that our father proceeded based upon the rules that he was given, and those rules that he was given do not disqualify his daughter, my sister Nancy. And it's also doesn't feel good. The DFAS has never, throughout this entire process, ever done what I would call the right thing. Now, the right thing doesn't have to be reversing and paying the claim, but at a minimum, directing us where to go for help with Nancy, and just or something like that, instead of acting in an adversarial, strong-arm fashion that we've been the butt end of, and that's what's happened. And again, after listening to this history, you probably have a fairly good idea of why we've persevered this far. But that's not all. There's also our family history, which is kind of interesting as well.